Well, hi everybody. I want to welcome you on to our weekly webinar, our Monday night BDP webinar. I'm just really excited to actually be talking about tonight's topic. I don't know if many of you saw my post on Facebook today that said, you've got to get on, even if you just listen in. Because, you know, a lot of things have been coming up for me lately in my business and actually in my life and everywhere. And, you know, I have several girlfriends surrounded by me who are in my Isagenix and who are not. And some things have been coming up. I've been getting a lot of questions about how do you take inspired action in your business? You know, what does that even mean? Like, what is that? And, you know, how do you take inspired action really in anything is the question that, you know, people have been asking me lately. And I think the reason why is because, you know, and some of you guys may have posted, I've posted out some things in ISA Hotties and some of my groups that, you know, talk about, you know, this new ideal life vision that I've been promoting lately. We're actually having our first training on Wednesday, and I'm really excited about what that has done for me. But, you know, and I definitely recommend it. I don't recommend very many things, but I definitely recommend Ann Webb's course on Ideal Life Vision. And the reason why is because, you know, most of us, when we go to take inspired action, if you think about it, what are you being inspired to take action on right now in your daily life? I mean, just with anything. Right? You know, some of us, we have other jobs that we're working because Isagenix hasn't quite taken over yet. You know, some of us are, you know, we live a life solely to run our kids around to all their activities because we know that's important. You know, some of us look in the mirror and we get super depressed because, you know, we're in this company Isagenix and we're like, why haven't we met our physical goals yet? So I want you to think about, what are you actually taking inspired action in some of those areas of your life that you're dissatisfied with? Because dissatisfaction actually is the best trigger for you to know that it's time to make a change. So that's why I'm talking about this tonight. Is just I've been getting a lot of questions on how people can take more inspired action in their business, and so that's what this webinar is about tonight. So let me click right here. Okay, so real quick before we get started, I want you guys to ask yourself a couple questions, and I think now is an important time to take out a pen and a piece of paper and really think about what we're going to talk about tonight, because we are going to get pretty deep, okay? Because you kind of can't. You know, when you're talking about inspired action, you can't not get deep, and I realized that as I started this webinar. So I want you to ask yourself, you know, where do you see yourself in 90 days from now? You know, and what are your financial goals in and outside of Isagenix? I mean, Isagenix is a vehicle, you guys. It's not the end all be all. You hear me say that all the time. You know, and what are your physical goals? So I want you to think about those kind of as we go through this, and hopefully I've given you enough time to pull out a pen and a piece of paper. If you haven't written them down, I want them in your mind right now as we go through this. And the reason why is we are in a business where we are our own CEOs. And we are the leader of the pack, right? We're the leader of our own pack every day. And it's hard to remember sometimes why we got into this business, but I would venture to say that several of you got into network marketing because of the freedom and the time freedom that it offers. So that's what I want to get into tonight, is kind of those goals, those deeper things that really mean something to us, that wake us up every day and get us out of bed and make us talk about Isagenix. You know, some of those goals. Okay, so, all right. I'm going to give you some examples of people who've taken inspired action, okay, and you're gonna recognize some of these people. So here we have people who really challenged themselves physically and used Isagenix to do it, right? You know, do you think Alex Koken, here he is right up here in the left-hand corner, such a huge, oh gosh, he's in the 100-pound club. He's so inspirational. He's an Isagenix millionaire. Do you think he just like woke up one day and said, gosh, I don't know why I'm an Isagenix? I mean, no, I mean, he knew exactly why he was an Isagenix. He knew what it would do for him physically. He knew what it was doing for him financially, and not all of them happened at the same time, but there's a reason why he took inspired action on his goals. Same thing with Jill Birth down here. Some of you might not know this, but Jill Birth was an Isagenix for 4 years. It took Jill Birth 4 years to finally decide and commit to finishing those programs and to saying, I'm going to be on that stage as the ISA Body Challenge winner. You know, here you have Lori Harder. She's a huge success in her own right, and she deserves all the credit. And I mean, you know, for what she's done for herself and as well as an Isagenix. You know, she might have already been a physical icon, but she's just huge. I mean, she's made a huge success for herself all around. Do you have these physical goals of training more? I mean, here's another picture. Here's Cathy Cooper. She's 62 years old, and talk about an inspired woman. And the reason why I didn't put her in the financial portion but in the physical portion is because I have seen that the way that this woman puts time into her physical goals. She's 62 years old. Okay, she knows what she wants to look like. That's what wakes her up every day to work out and to have a shake. Because think about it, how many of you guys, and be honest with yourself, you've been in Isagenix, and you wake up in the morning, okay, and you know what you're supposed to do, right? You know that in order to meet your physical goals, Isagenix says, hey, we're gonna do 2 shakes today. We're gonna have some healthy snacking in between, and we're gonna have 1 meal. That is a shake day. But how many of you guys actually finish out the day like that, right? So we're going to talk about why you do that and how that is, and what the, you know, how we self-sabotage and some things like that. But first I want you to go in to look at some of these guys right here. When we talk about our financial goals, I mean, hello, Lynn Hagedorn, the fastest growing millionaire in Isagenix, and we are a 10-year-old company. Do you think we still got it? Do you think the opportunity is as good for you today as it was yesterday? Okay, and how about George Ruiz? Do you think he just decided, you know, one day I'm gonna learn how to speak English, go to the US and become a millionaire? There's a learning curve with this. He didn't do that, but then he slowly started to believe in himself, like, hey, I really can, you know, be a millionaire in this company and in this business and in this industry. I see other people doing it and I know that I can, you know. And I think it's funny that some people go, oh my gosh, well, you know, people just get excited, you know, by everything he says. But don't you think that there's a certain amount of inspired action that he took in order to get where he's at? And he believed he could do it. Absolutely. Warren Lance down here in the left-hand corner is a huge inspiration to me because he's been in Isagenix for 7 years, and just this last year he went from cycling like 30 times a week to maxing out. He finally enrolled these 2 amazing, incredible leaders, which you know, Michael Klaus and Lynn Hagedorn. After 7 years, persistence, he finally saw himself in that role. Here you have Susan Sly, and I could go on for hours about Susan Sly. She just finished running the Boston Marathon. She was there during the bombing, which was so scary. We were so glad that she is safe. And the other thing is that, you know, if you know Susan or know her story at all, she used to have MS. She was very poor. Now she earns over, you know, $100,000 per month. But she finally started listening to herself and taking inspired action. So we are going to go into this pretty deep right now. But before I do this, I have a tendency to compare myself to other people, and I don't know why that is, but I know some of us have that tendency. So I don't want you to compare yourself to any of the examples that I just gave, because your story is not going to look like their story, all right? So I just want you to be inspired by them. And I put this quote on here, everyone is a genius, right? But if you judge a fish on its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. Okay, and the reason why I put that in there is because sometimes we are really harsh at judging ourselves and comparing ourselves to those around us. Okay, we want what they want. It's true, absolutely. You need to want some higher goals, right? You need to want what other people have, because how do you know what you want if you don't see that other people have accomplished it? But instead, we're going to be inspired by them, all right? Okay, so I'm going to give you some quick information. All right, and this is where we're going to start to get a little bit deep. But I want to ask you, I want you to ask yourself, how big is your imagination? How big is it? How big do you see yourself getting? Right? How far do you see yourself going with this company? How far do you see yourself, you know, being an inspiration? How far? Did you know that you're a spiritual being having a human experience? You are your thoughts, literally, okay? And what does your human domain look like? What is surrounding you right now that's keeping you from feeling less than effective? And the reason why this is so deep and so important is because this is true stuff right here. This is real information, okay? What is surrounding you oftentimes causes the thoughts that you have. So we're going to go deeper into this. Creation. Okay, you will create no matter what. You are a creator, okay? You are a human being. We're here to create experiences in our life, all right? So what are your patterns? And if you can think of some of these patterns that maybe allow you to play smaller than you really are, maybe you should write some of those down right now as well. Okay, because the idea here is once we understand that we are these patterns, these things, you know, these habits, we're taught this, you know, and we play these out over and over time. And, you know, it's funny because, you know, the older I get, the more I realize that, gosh, you know, I'm really in charge here. All right. And I know that several of you know that on this call, on this webinar. But I want you to learn to manage those new experiences, because once you give your mind these new patterns, you'll learn to manage new experiences. Right now, you're not ready to maybe make $140,000 per month, like Susan Tsai or Lynn Hagedorn. Maybe you're not there yet. I know I'm not yet, right? So I have to open my mind up, give myself some new patterns, because I'm going to be creating anyways, right? And then I have to learn to manage those new experiences. Right? And I have this picture of this guy who's kind of confused down here, because a lot of us, we walk around in a confused state. We're not sure why certain things happen to us. We keep asking why is a big problem as well. Okay, so here we go into some mind mastery. This is really where inspired action starts to come into play. Okay, when you set a new vision for yourself, it is just a thought, and you know that. You know it's just a thought. But you need to ignore your 5 senses about it, okay? So you can grow your awareness to choose new experiences when they come. You guys, what are you doing right now? You're listening, okay? Maybe you're eating something, you're tasting a shake, okay? You're touching something, you're breathing. Okay, we have all of these sensory perceptions going on, you know, and you ask yourself, once you start setting this new vision, you have this new idea, okay, I'm going to lose 30 pounds. Can you touch your body right now? Can you feel the way that you feel breathing? Can you crave something right now? Absolutely. All of this is going on in your body right now, because you are a human being, right? A spiritual being having a human experience. And when you go to choose something new, it can be very difficult. So you have to dream the dream first. That's the first step, is you must dream the dream. You must dream yourself out of where you're at. You have to develop a huge imagination around the ideas that you have of success. And I would say now is as good a time as any, right? To dream a bigger dream than where you're at. So real quickly, I'm going to give you guys like a minute or two, because we are on a webinar and I want to be respectful of time. But I also want this to be effective for you. I want you to set 3 new goals, 3 new physical goals, okay, for yourself right now. And if you can just come up with a few one-liners, I want you to go back and put in detail what that means for you, okay? And I want you to do the same thing with your financial goals, all right? I want you to set 3 new goals for yourself financially right now. You know, maybe put down there that, you know, instead of consultant, you go manager, right? Instead of manager, you go director, etc. Maybe you put down in there, I am, this is supposed to say, I am so happy and grateful now that I'm earning $5,000 per month on Isagenix or better, right? Maybe you've got to write some of these things out so you can start painting that picture with your 5 senses, because you can't put your hands on $5,000 right now if you don't have it. So we need to dream the bigger dream first, okay? So I want you to set those goals right now. I'm just going to give you a quick minute, and be specific. The more specific you are, the better you start to understand your patterns. Think about what's coming to your mind as you set these goals. Is it a possibility or is it not? Does it seem too big? So I really want you to think, you know, to dig deep here for a second, because I know every single one of you is capable of doing that. You know, as I'm talking, just want you to kind of dig a little deeper for a moment and set some new goals for yourself right now. And you know, setting goals for yourself it's ever changing, it's always moving, and it never ends. So I want you to remember that the goals that you set down right now, might be different in 90 days from now once you've accomplished them, or in a year from now, all right, once you've accomplished them. So just put some things down there, and I put that I'm happy and grateful now that because that's a great base to start from. All right, so I've given you a minute as I've been talking, and I want you to think about this, okay, as we go through this. I want you to stay awake more and fall asleep less to who you are. That's the next step. Besides just big, putting out, dreaming the bigger dream, you need to start thinking about it more often. How many of you guys, and this happens to you, okay, let's say you work a regular job right now and you work outside of the home. You wake up, right? You go to the shower, you shower, you go downstairs, you have your shake, you get your kids ready, you drop them off at school, you get in your car and you head to work, and you get to work and it's noon and you're like, how did I even get here? It's because you're totally and completely on autopilot. So you got to start doing some different things. But the idea is that you know who you are, and you are the source of your power. Okay? It's really funny because there is actually, well, I don't know if I want to get into that or not, but there is a story, and it's actually in the Bible, and you guys are well aware of it, that there is this incredibly powerful man, okay, and he's so strong, and the Roman armies around him are like, gosh, this guy, how can we, not be at war with him, because there's no way to beat him, okay, and he has like a specific trait in him, or on him actually, that is the source of his strength. And this is actually the story of Samson, right? But I want you to think about your own thoughts right now, okay? You are the source of your power. Well, Samson's power actually came from, he said, his hair, right? The head of his hair is where the source of his power was. But what happens is the army goes back and they're like, how can we persuade this man to fall? How can we persuade him to not be as powerful, right? And what do? Well, then they send over Delilah, right? Okay, they send Delilah over, and she entices him, right? And he invites her over for dinner, actually, right? And they have a meal, and he starts sharing all of the stories and the things that have happened to him, and he actually is sharing certain weaknesses, right, with her. So what does he do? He ends up taking her to bed, and it's like, oh, Delilah, I know some of you guys are probably laughing right now, but this is so true, because we have a Samson and a Delilah in our minds, and they're happening. They're both happening at the same time. We are the source of our power, yet we are our biggest weakness. And what happens is Delilah goes and she, they're cuddling, and, she's whispering sweet nothings in his ear, that kind of a thing. And Delilah says to him, right before he's about to go to sleep, like, hey, where's the source of your power? And he says, oh, it's in my hair. And then he falls asleep. So what does she do? She calls the armies in, and they, get some little cutters, and they cut off all his hair, and he wakes up, right? And he's like, oh my gosh, like, how did this happen, right? He was totally deceived. And that's what happens when we go out and we set these goals. We have both of these things happening in our minds. But so we have to remember that deep within us, the I am part of us that says that you get to create who you are, okay? You have both of those going on around you. That is the spiritual being having the human experience. And and the person who wrote that story it was kind of neat that he put Samson's biggest weakness as his hair, because that's something that naturally occurs within us, right, as human beings. Like, we don't have to think about growing hair, right? We have hair all over our bodies. Even if you're bald, you have hair on your body, right? It's a naturally occurring thing. It just is. You are power. It just is, okay? But what happens is, once you start to become more awake and aware, your universe and your opportunities expand, and all of a sudden you give way for moments to have Delilah moments, right? So that's what this whole point is. Now understanding that, I hope that was a really great story for you guys to comprehend, okay? Because now that you get that, you understand that you're the source of your power, you are already awake. Whatever goals you wrote down, they are happening. Now that you've said it, you wrote it down, right? And it's happening. Now we need to start listening to our thoughts, okay? And believing in ourselves, right? Because even though it doesn't appear that you have money in the bank or that, you know, you're 30 pounds less, you have to imagine in your mind that you are not your condition or circumstance. And then all of a sudden you decide to be your goals. Isn't that interesting? Talk about inspiration, right? And your power is not in the condition, it is in the vision that you have. And so that's why this is such a stretch for us. That's why when we get into a company like Isagenix, we have all these big dreams and these goals and desires, all right? But it is a stretch for us, all right? So the difference is now is that you get to ask yourself some pretty empowering questions. And, you know, all of a sudden, you know, what actions would you take if you signaled out there to the universe what you want just by writing it down and by starting to believe that you could achieve it? What would you do to achieve those goals? Okay, and that's such a powerful thing. That's a powerful right in itself. And here's why. Because once you say, gosh, you know, I wonder if this really can occur, you switch the frequency to what you want to experience, and the universe helps you find ways to achieve it. Now can you see why you've been asleep? Now can you see why it's important to just become more awake and aware every day, every hour, every moment that you can, focused on what it is that you really want? That's how important this is, because this life is all about that. You want to tune into your goals, okay? Just like a television station, you'll be watching like CNN, okay? But the reality is that there is a Discovery Channel. There is a, you know, fitness channel. There is a spiritual channel. You have to stay in tune, right, to what those things are that you want. So you start not noticing things you haven't. You start to notice things you haven't noticed before. That's what that's supposed to say, okay? And that's the reality. Once you tune in, you'll start noticing things you haven't noticed before. Little things start to change, okay? And you'll have inspired thoughts that guide you to do new things, all right? Like make more calls, make more posts on Facebook, make a new list of people, or all of a sudden names start popping into your head. That's where this inspired action comes from that I talk about so much, that you have to work from inspiration. Otherwise, what's the point, right? You're not focused on your goals, then you're just throwing spaghetti noodles at the wall hoping that they stick. So, and all of a sudden you'll have these. I mean, today, maybe some of you, even just as new as today, had a thought to call somebody and to share Isagenix, but you didn't. Why? Right? Maybe some of you guys had an inspiration today that right before you picked up the cookie that said like, hey, you're supposed to have a shake, it's noon, right? This happens, but you'll be more aware when you stay in tune. So you want to wake up with your goals on your mind, okay, by reading them each morning, and I mean it, each morning, okay? So you can always be tuned into the right channel. And the right channel is always your channel, right? Because we are the source of our power. Okay, so this is really cool quote right here by Emerson. He says, stand guard at the portal of your own mind. Now that we've been going through some of these slides, I mean, can't you just see what a powerful statement that is? To stand guard at the portal of your own mind? We forgot how important it is when setting new goals to make sure that we are the one who's guarding the thoughts that are happening every moment, because you can't stop thinking. Don't tell yourself to stop thinking, you know, just start putting out there more of what you want so you can be thinking more inspired thoughts. And here's the truth, okay, that you have your own will. And this is a God-given capacity. It doesn't matter if whoever you are, you have your own will. So nobody can make you feel or think anything you don't want to feel or think, except you, right? And an unmanaged mind will revert to your old patterns automatically, okay? And as soon as you sway at all, you're going to go back to those old patterns because they're so easy, right? And you've been given authority and the responsibility and the complete freedom to exercise your will every day. I mean, that should be exciting to you. I mean, it's exciting to me just reading it. You know, knowing that I have authority and responsibility and freedom to exercise what I want to accomplish every day in my business, outside of my business, with my family, with my friends, right? You know, all of those things. And the thing is that you're going to be feeling some things when this starts happening. As soon as you set out a goal like, oh, I'm going to be a 3-star golden circle, you know, in 90 days or better, and I'm so happy and grateful now that, you know, my team this and da-da-da, you know, all of a sudden, don't you get a little bit of fear sometimes, or a little bit of these feelings that come up inside of you? That's because feelings, we talked about the 5 senses again, right? You're living in a sensory world, but feelings are reflections of the state of your mind. So you have to control yourself from trying to move conditions around to feel good. How many of you, that makes complete sense to me, right? Because how many of you guys have thought, gosh, if I just had more money, right? That's you trying to move a condition in order to feel good, okay? But instead, you have to forget about that, and you have to make friends with the part of you that can notice what you're thinking, that makes you feel a certain way so that you can feel good now. That's why feelings are so important. If you feel like crap, you will get crap. Okay? If you feel fantastic no matter what because you realize you're the one who's in control of how many calls you make or how many people that you inspire with your Isagenix story, that's the difference in you feeling good in that moment. So you want to be grateful. That's a part of that. Be grateful for where you're at. Okay? Be grateful and relax a little bit. Okay? Relax a little bit into this. You don't have to accomplish everything right away. You just have to master your feelings and your thoughts. Okay? You don't have to have a condition change to feel better now. I know some of you guys are thinking, oh my gosh, this is really deep, you know, could you just give us a lesson? But this is the part of you, what we're going over tonight, that we struggle with the most when it comes to meeting our goals. And the hardest part about being an Isagenix is believing in somebody who doesn't believe in themselves. Okay, and then this all has to do with that. Okay, so that's why this is super important. Just want to bring you back to why we're discussing this. So what are your priorities? When you make being aware of your thoughts the priority, then things start moving, and they start moving fast. This just happened to me as I reset my goals the other day. I was laying in bed and I was like crying a little bit. And the reason why I was crying is because so many of the things that I wanted were happening so fast. I felt so overwhelmed. Not ungrateful, but overwhelmed. And that was a really good feeling. I haven't felt that way in a long time. And so that's kind of where you want to start to get at, these places in your life where things start moving so fast, you just get to be grateful and just say yes, you know, to everything pretty much. And all of a sudden, you know, you're a consultant, you're a manager, you're a director, you're an executive, or you're a full-time 6-figure income earner in Isagenix. All right, and pretty soon, right, you've reached your goal, your goal weight, or, you know, you're happier when you look in the mirror, or you no longer feel sick. Okay? Pretty soon, all of this starts coming at you, and you're like, it's like this new experience, and you start to live a new you, a new part of you. So action. Okay, so here's what's going to happen. When you receive promptings, right, when you receive new inspiration, do it. Whatever it is, say yes to it, do it. Don't harm yourself, though. Okay, so as long as it has nothing to do with harming yourself or other people. Okay, but whatever you tell yourself to do, do it. Because a lot of times, how many of you guys have had this like great inspirational thought, and then you forget about it, and you go out in the world and somebody else does it, right? Like, okay, so for example, like when Crocs came out, okay, I was down in Florida on vacation, and I was like, these are the coolest, like, gardening shoes is what I thought they were at the time. And I bought myself my first pair of Crocs. And I remember thinking, how cool would it be to, like, stick things in the holes, right? And, like, little jewels, like, little things that, like, little mementos, like a charm bracelet on your feet or something. And then that lady, I don't even know who she is, she came out with it, man, and she is a multi-millionaire now because she sold her little bedazzling idea for Crocs to Crocs. You guys, it's like simple inspirational things are coming to you every single day when you're in that how can I, or what if this really worked, or, you know, all that stuff, it happens to you. And whatever you tell yourself to do, it's going to come from you. Do it. Okay? And when you feel a good emotion about your goals, just say thank you for once. Say thank you to yourself for recognizing change, or a change of a thought, or for changing a bad thought to a better one. Because here's the thing, if you're not impressed by a certain condition anymore, it will shift very easily. Okay? It will shift very easily. But if you are impressed by it, it has you. You are captured by it. And here's a good example. And you know how there's like that saying everywhere, what would Jesus do? Okay, but I really want you to think about Jesus for a second, whether you believe in him or not. Okay, as a real person, I do. But okay, believe it. Think about Jesus for a second. Was he ever super impressed by somebody's condition? If somebody came to him and they were blind, and was he ever super impressed by it? Like, oh my gosh, I mean, how long have you been blind? You might need to touch me more than once, right? I mean, he never thought about the conditions anymore. He wasn't impressed by them. They never had him, and he was able to create magic and miracles in people's lives. So you need to start thinking that way about yourself. Stop being impressed by a certain condition. Stop being impressed by where you live, or the money that's in your bank, or the certain car that you drive, because you're so upset by it. Okay? Stop being impressed by it. Start being impressed that you made a decision to get into this phenomenal company that has a great opportunity called Isagenix. And look what it's doing for people who are not impressed by their conditions and are going for it with no hesitation. Every day they're taking inspired action on what they need to be doing for their teens, right? So that's what this is about. And I have this quote here, right? Surround yourself with the dreamers and the doers, the believers and the thinkers, but most of all, surround yourself with those who see greatness within you, even when you don't see it yourself. There was somebody who believed in you. That's why you're in Isagenix. They saw your greatness maybe before you saw it within Isagenix. So there's a reason why you're on this webinar. Okay? But the person that you can surround yourself with, who's the dreamer and the doer and the believer, is always going to be you first. You first. You have to believe in yourself first. You have to be the dreamer and the doer and the thinker and the guardian of your thoughts, right? Okay, so this is how you come into your world. You're in your own world, right? So be careful who you hang out with. Are you inspired by them or not? Change your situation, right? Are you inspired by that thought or not? Because a lot of this is so much more internal than where you're at. You're never going to impress all the people around you. You're just not. I mean, I'm here to tell you that, I don't impress George Ruiz all the time because I'm a human being. He doesn't always impress me all the time because he's a human being. Okay? So you have to impress yourself first and be inspired by your thoughts or not. And I want you to, just as a reminder always, that as we're going through this, I want you to be patient as you go through this new phase of your life, because as soon as you start implementing some of the things that we've been talking about, like changing your thoughts in the moment, writing your goals down, acting on inspiration, you will also make mistakes. And that's okay. That's what we call learning and living life. And so all of it's good, okay? It's not evil. It's not bad. All of this is good, okay? All of this stuff is good. It always is good. Declare it good, right? So stay inspired. Stay in tune. Stay believing. And stay in action, whatever you do. As long as you're going for it, you're doing something for you and for the people around you. Okay, so that's why that's so important. And I have this quote here: the future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. And Eleanor Roosevelt, I mean, that was just super inspirational. And there's so many people who we've been inspired from in the past, who we're being inspired by now. But the person I want you to be most inspired by is you, and the opportunity that you have every day to be a new you within Isagenix. So that is the conclusion of my presentation. I know it was really deep. If you have to go back and watch it again, I would. And certainly, I have been inspired recently because these kind of words don't normally come out of me. But I have been, sometimes you're asked certain questions and you're called to a higher calling to learn something. And, you know, this has been my life these last couple weeks even. And so that's why I'm sharing this kind of deeper inspiration with you, because I have felt it very motivating in my own life right now and in my own business. And so I'm very grateful for that. I'm very grateful to have a webinar to be able to share with you guys these things that I'm learning every single week. And I'm so incredibly grateful for the leadership that we have in this company, you know, for Jim and Cathy Cooper, and for what they've done, and John Anderson for developing these incredible products that I know every single time I share them with somebody, it changes their life. And it changes me because of it. So I hope that you realize that that really is on a deeper level why many of you are here on this call, is because you have a higher calling. That's why you said yes. You have a higher calling to help people physically and financially. And that's really what this is about. And as you help others, all right, you will see yourself. You'll find yourself on stage like Susan Sly, earning that great income. You'll find yourself, you know, running your own team calls. You'll find yourself, you know, working with your leaders. I mean, that's what this is about.